making the case for property tax relief on the farm. Governor Pete Ricketts says that's priority number one. We'll have more straight ahead on Grow. We will look at the details of the governor's plan and have reaction from local senators and talk one-on-one with the governor. And we'll talk to an egg economist at the York Farm Expo about the outlook in the farm markets and highlight our outstanding farm youth of the month, a young man using drones to help farmers make better decisions. Get ready to grow. Property taxes #1 on the governor's priority list, especially for agricultural land. Here's a look at the governor's proposal. Property tax relief has been issue #1 for the state's farmers who've been anxiously awaiting details of the governor's tax relief plan.
The #1 issue people talk to me about is property taxes.
Relief for farmers. Governor Pete Ricketts unveils what he calls structural changes to our tax system.
It's a little bit tricky, right? Because, of course, the state doesn't actually collect any property taxes.
Ricketts was joined by senators to unveil a two-part plan. First, a limit on the growth in farmland values to 3% on a statewide average to keep taxes from rising too fast at a time when farm income is down.
And that will help address some of that pressure that we see from our farmers and ranchers who are particularly hit by those run-ups in ag land valuations and the property taxes that go along with those.
Farmers in south central Nebraska could actually see the taxable value of their land decline, with only slight gains from McCook to Ord. The other side of this, limits on local spending.
If you're a non-agricultural landowner, you're saying, well, wait a minute, what about me? And the property taxes I pay as a commercial property owner or a residential property owner. And the answer to that is the second part of this, which seeks to rein in some of the budgeting that goes on.
Senator Kate Sullivan, who represents an area that includes Ord and St. Paul, will introduce a bill limiting growth in school budgets, also limiting how much schools can put into cash reserves, and would require a vote of the people to increase the tax levy for certain projects.
There's accountability for any of us that serve in public office to be accountable to the taxpayer who ultimately writes the check.
Glore says the proposal is sure to face criticism from schools.
I certainly understand it, but I don't think what we hear from them is going to be any louder a clamor than what we're hearing from property tax payers.
There are several different competing proposals here at the state capitol. Now it's up to the 49 lawmakers to decide the path forward. Steve White, NTV News, Lincoln. We caught up with senators from across central and western Nebraska who seem to think the governor's plan is a good start. The governor made a point of explaining to urban lawmakers how taxes keep going up and commodity prices are down. When it comes to the details, senators do differ on the fine points. Senator Mike Groney of North Platte thinks the governor's proposal to deal with farmland valuations doesn't go far enough. He's introducing a proposal of his own, but he does agree with the governor that the state needs to rein in local spending.
You can't promise tax relief if you don't start first to control the spending.
Local boards have to recognize that they face the same challenges we face here at the state. Last year in dealing with the state budget, we kept the increase to 3.5%. Local boards have to exhibit the same type of budget restraint.
Senator Kate Sullivan, going into her 8th and final year, agrees this is the top priority.
And that's why I felt so responsible not to leave this beautiful unicameral without trying to do something.
And one more proposal, Senator Mike Glore of Grand Island, he wants to raise tobacco taxes and use $90 million raised that way to go towards property tax relief. From state politics to Washington, another hot policy hitting the president's desk. Congress defied a presidential veto threat and passed a resolution of disapproval against the waters of the U.S. The Obama administration says the EPA rules would safeguard drinking water for 117 million people. But lawmakers in rural areas say they are costly, confusing, and an overreach, giving regulators unprecedented control of small bodies of water on private land.
I certainly appreciate clean water. However, the EPA's Waters of the U.S. rule, or WOTUS, is one of the largest abuses of executive power in modern history and poses a significant threat to America's economy.
Obama has said he will not sign a measure to scrap WOTUS, and neither Congress nor the Senate have enough votes to override. President Obama visiting Nebraska following his State of the Union address. One thing farmers do agree with the president on is trade. The American Soybean Association saying, quote, "The promise of TPP for soybean farmers is too great to accept anything less, and we are very encouraged to hear the president continue his focus on TPP in the year to come." Soy benefits from the deal in 3 ways, they say. The increase in export of soybeans and products to 11 nations, which already account for nearly $5.5 billion each year. And they say TPP will expand meat exports to the region, also driving demand for soy meal as livestock feed here in the U.S. And it'll foster long-term demand, they say, through further development of emerging economies in the region. Farmers in central Nebraska could earn a premium on soybeans thanks to new technology. High oleic soybeans will be accepted by AGP in Hastings next fall. The cooking oil made from these soybeans has no trans fats and is better for frying and baking. Soybean oil has been losing market share because of health concerns with trans fats. Researchers at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln have done extensive testing dating back more than 15 years.
And it's a beautiful oil. We've had this technology in hand to produce a high oleic acid soybean since the early 1990s. So why it needs to be the commodity bean? Because it has superior functionalities compared to standard commodity oil.
Tom Clemente says it has many of the characteristics of olive oil, including better shelf life. He says there's no yield loss. The Nebraska Soybean Board says it could increase demand for oil and boost soybean prices. The numbers are in, and it looks like another record-breaking year in terms of production in the state. NTV's Marilyn Barnett, our Grow co-host, is in with a look at the numbers. And Marilyn, it looks like just some fantastic yields out there.
Yes, Steve, some big numbers to talk about here from Nebraska Ag Statistics. Corn and soybean production reached record-breaking numbers. Corn for grain production in Nebraska, a record high 1.69 billion bushels. That's up 6% from 2014. The National Ag Statistics Service also shows a yield bump of 6% to 185 bushels per acre. Now, soybean production for 2015 reaches a record 306 million bushels, and it was a record yield as well, 58 bushels per acre. Sorghum estimated at 23 million bushels, up 76% from 2014. Now, another rise that we are seeing is in grain storage. Storage capacity totaled over 2 billion bushels. That's up from 32 million from last year. Now, on-farm storage did not change. The off-farm storage grew to 929 million bushels. One area where we are not seeing record numbers, that's winter wheat. Seeded area for harvest here in 2016 is an estimated 1.28 million acres. That's a drop from almost 1.5 million acres last year. Steve, back to you.
Farmers in Nebraska coming off a year where they had good yields, but not a lot of money to show for it. Here's more from an ag economist we caught up with at the New York Ag Expo. Those who lived through the farm crisis of the 80s are wondering, will this be a repeat? Experts say the good news this time is different.
We were getting about 50% of our income.
With farm income down, farmers need to be laser focused.
Now's the time where we're going to really have to buckle down.
Ag economist and Southwest Nebraska farmer Brent Gloy tells farmers to control costs because that may be the only chance of turning a profit.
We are in year 3 of a pretty substantial downturn in farm incomes, and so I think people are starting to get a little nervous.
It is pretty tough right now.
Corn grower Boyd Stewart Jr. says farmers are having difficult conversations with accountants and bankers.
It's kind of tough to figure out that, hey, I really didn't make anything for all the work I put in.
Stewart says if corn prices went up, that would sure help. But since he can't count on that, he's going to see if there are ways to save on fertilizer, chemicals, and seed, and talk to his landlord about lowering the cash rent.
And hold things together for a few years here until things turn around.
This economic climate may not be when you'd expect someone to start a new event catering to farmers, but the first ever York Ag Expo appears to be a success.
We still have to eat and we still have to plant, and these men and women need to know the best economical ways to do that.
Brent Gloy says it's far different from the farm crisis of the 80s. This time, demand remains strong from ethanol and international markets like China. He says the future for farmers like Boyd Sturr is bright if they can weather a few tough years.
We're always optimists, and we look forward to the coming year, and hopefully things will get turned around for us.
Dr. Gloy, the agricultural economist, says farmers need to budget carefully, and if they see something that looks like a good deal, be disciplined because they can't afford to make mistakes in this market. From the family farm to the president's cabinet, Mike Johanns honored for serving agriculture. Johanns, the former Secretary of Agriculture, received honors at the American Farm Bureau annual convention. He was elected twice as Nebraska governor and served in the U.S. Senate as well, where he says he fought government red tape.
We eat 3 meals a day in this country, and we can't do with much less. And if you over-regulate this industry and make it impossible to produce the food we need, then that has very, very serious consequences.
Johanns worked on the Farm Bill of 2008 and held listening sessions across the country. Farm Bureau leaders say Johanns has always been a humble leader, something he learned on the family farm. Using drones to help farmers get a bird's eye view of their operations. That's what our outstanding farm youth of the month is doing. We'll meet him later in the show. Up next, our interview with Governor Pete Ricketts.